The cold winds of Heligoland whipped through the isolated streets as my family settled into our new life. Our dad had been offered a prestigious position at a technology firm, and we had moved from the bustling city to this eerie island off the coast of Germany. The isolation sent shivers down my spine, a stark contrast to the warmth of the city we once called home. Dad assumed the role of the first managing director of the newly opened branch office, and we found ourselves living in a quaint house on the outskirts of Heligoland. The island felt desolate, surrounded by the vastness of the sea. My brother and I enrolled in the nearby school, where the atmosphere was different and the students carried a mysterious aura. Our journey home revealed a foreboding sight, a large, ruined building standing like a forgotten relic. It cast an unsettling shadow over the road, a chilling reminder of the isolation we now called home. The locals spoke of the structure in hushed whispers, hinting at its eerie past. As we passed by, I couldn't shake the feeling that the abandoned place held secrets that refused to be forgotten. Weeks passed, and my younger brother, always the adventurous one, couldn't resist the lure of the mysterious building. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, he convinced me to explore the decaying structure with him. Reluctantly, I agreed, and together we ventured into the unknown. The closer we got, the more apparent it became that the building was not just a structure. It was a massive, overgrown cemetery. The gravestones were weathered and worn, bearing names and dates that seemed ancient. The air grew heavy, and an unsettling chill settled over us as we realized we stood in a graveyard long forgotten by time. The pet cemetery had a notorious past, we discovered. Locals spoke of strange occurrences and unexplainable phenomena surrounding the abandoned burial ground. Stories circulated about animals buried there coming back to life, their spectral forms wandering the island at night. While looking at those stone coffins, we suddenly saw a big bat hanging from a tree. I didn't know a bat could be so huge. I had only seen the smallest size bats, so that size freaked me out. I tried to escape the bat's touch on my body, so I jumped to the other side of the coffin. My brother laughed at my fear. "You're afraid of bats, right?" We saw an old man sitting on a broken coffin, wearing a dusty black coat and pants. We didn't notice he was watching us for a while. "Not really, but I'm not fond of bats either." "Why not? How much do you know about bats?" I didn't want to waste my time discussing bats, so I shortened my reply. "Most of the bats I saw are fruit bats, and I also heard about those bats that bite small animals and suck their blood. And don't you know about those vampires who are disguised as bats and suck blood from humans?" "Do you mean writer Bram Stoker's Dracula?" My brother replied. "That's a story, not real." I was quite bored with his interest, so I changed the topic. "Do you live here in this area?" "Yes, we have lived here for 4 generations, and my father was the priest in the only church here. I'll show you my entire ancestors' stone here." We had no interest in seeing his belongings, so I politely thanked him and walked toward the main road towards our home. The next day, in school, I asked one of my new classmates about the old man we spotted in the cemetery. "I believe you're referring to Tom Herman." "Yes, I know him, and everyone here does, but when was he released from the hospital?" "That's news." "Released from the hospital?" "Yes, he was admitted to the lunatic asylum in the city for a few years, and the sad thing was that even his father died in the same asylum that he was admitted to. Maybe lunacy has its own inherited disease." I felt sad about him. That night, his voice and the old cemetery stayed with me so much that I dreamed about them. I saw he was standing by an old gravestone looking down, but that's not what got my attention. It was his skin. It was ripped and scratched, and looked like it was rotting away. His clothes were muddy and ripped. Not only that, but they looked quite old. As I kept walking, the old man turned to me. When he did, I was shocked by what I saw. He had no eyes, his face had cuts on it, and his hair looked like it was falling out. As I looked at him in shock, he started to walk over to me slowly. It looked like he was dragging one of his legs, but I didn't stay to find out. I acted quickly and ran to him. In the woods, looking back every so often to see if he was still following me. I kept running, but it looked like he was catching up with me, making me panic. I panicked as I was running. I tripped over a rock that was sticking out of the ground. I hit my head on the ground, knocking myself out for about a minute or more, and as I opened my eyes, it was morning and my brother was knocking my head. Because of some local religious matter, the school was closed for that day. We started exploring the island, and while we were walking, we saw a few local people gathered and arguing about something. I asked one about that. Last night, one local farm owner's 2 calves were found dead, and what the centenary doctor said shocked them a lot. "Why?" "The doctor found no blood on those calves. It looks like some kind of animal or something sucked their blood from their body. A few years back, this kind of incident happened. And then yesterday, it started again. They are quite frightened." That news gave us a little bit of a chill. After all, Heligoland is new to us, but this was such a bright morning that a scary feeling started vanishing when we began walking toward the beautiful cornfield. We started walking beside the cornfield path. But not again. From my eyesight, I saw Tom Herman standing at the edge of the field. We tried to ignore him because I didn't want to talk about bats and the old cemetery on this beautiful sunny morning. But it was our luck that he saw us. Good morning, how are you both? Good morning. I am fine. How about you? Sorry, yesterday I forgot to introduce myself. I am Tom Herman. What are your names, please? We said our names. Did you hear about the mysterious deaths of two calves? Yes, I heard the news on the road. Maybe some kind of unknown animal killed those poor calves. Or the blood-sucking bats? He began his bat love again. I tried to change the topic. Isn't it a beautiful cornfield? Oh, I forgot to tell you, please have a look at my house. I am inviting you both to my house. After all, your family is the new guest in our town, and it would be my honor if you came to my house. We are here to explore the island, so we don't have any problem seeing his house. We just ignored that matter. He was a lunatic patient. With a very warm gesture, he guided us towards his house. After walking for half an hour, we came to the edge of the river where the thick jungle started. I didn't know if anybody could live here. It's so lonely and deserted looking. My brother whispered to me. Then he showed us his house. This is not a house but rather an old-fashioned castle, very old indeed, and all the past glory is gone. It has a name too, written on a marble stone plate, Herman Hall. He opened the big entrance iron gate in a very cheerful manner. I am living here all alone in the house. I am so happy. After so many years, two guests have come. Are you living alone in this big castle? Don't you have any relatives here? No, I am the only child of my parents, and my father was the only child of his parents. We walked towards the house. There I was looking from the chaise window and soon detected the object for which, for some time, my eye had been in search. Barwick Hall was a large, quaint house of that cagework fashion known as black and white, in which the bars and angles of an oak framework contrast, black as ebony, with the white plaster that overspreads the masonry built into its interstices. This steep-roofed Elizabethan house stood on park-like grounds of limited size, but made imposing by the old man's noble stature trees that now cast their lengthening shadows eastward over the sward from the declining sun. We drew up at the door, got out, and had a good look at the front of the castle. It was a large and depressing mansion with signs of long neglect. Great wooden shutters, in the old fashion, were barred outside, across the grass, and even nettles were growing thick in the courtyard, and a thin moss streaked the timber beams. The plaster was discolored by time and weather and bore great russet and yellow stains. The gloom was increased by several grand old trees crowded close to the house. There was but little light in the hall, and that little lost itself in darkness in the background. It was very spacious and lofty, with a gallery running around it. This, when the door was open, was visible at 2 or 3 points. Almost there, dark, our new acquaintance led us across this wide hall into the room destined for my reception. Mr. Herman offered us coffee. While drinking coffee, I saw some large hand-painted portraits. He said those were his ancestors' pictures. While looking at those old paintings carefully, I noticed something unusual in those faces. Their eyes, ears, and chins are quite different in shape, like the shapes of a bat. That thought came to my mind within a second. Maybe that is where the thought came from. He talked so much about bats. From where we were sitting, I saw a locked room whose windows were broken. From that window, I saw a large number of iron cages, very old-looking. I pointed at those cages. Those were used to keep dangerous wild animals, you know, the old-fashioned private zoos. Yes, I know, we left his castle after a few conversations about his ancestors' glorious history. We started walking to gather more information about the old town. As days turned into nights, our once idyllic life in Heligoland took a sinister turn. Strange noises echoed through the night, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners of our vision. My brother began experiencing vivid, unsettling dreams, visions of the pet cemetery coming to life, with ghostly animals clawing their way out of the ground. One evening, my brother came in very late. He went to play football with his new friend, and he said he went to Herman's garden for their missing football. I didn't know they went so far. While eating our dinner, I saw 2 very little black spots on my brother's neck. He was surprised and said, maybe some insects bit me while they were finding their ball on Herman's field. The next morning, we noticed a change in my brother. He became withdrawn, his eyes haunted by the things he had witnessed in his dreams and the eerie reality of the pet cemetery. Dad, busy with his responsibilities at the new office, dismissed my brother's concerns as mere stress from the relocation. But the island had more in store for us. As the days passed, my brother's mental state deteriorated further. He claimed to hear whispers in the night, beckoning him to the pet cemetery. Desperation and fear gripped him, but his compulsion to unravel the mysteries of the graveyard grew stronger. One night, when we were all in deep sleep, unable to resist the call of the mysterious burial ground, my brother ventured into the heart of the pet cemetery alone. The fog thickened and shadows danced menacingly. As he reached the center, a hidden mausoleum revealed itself, its entrance adorned with eerie symbols. The next morning, my dad and I were horrified to see no trace of my brother. We were shocked. His health was not going well. Where could he go in such an early morning? Suddenly, one of our neighbors informed us they saw my brother's senseless body found in Herman's family pet cemetery. We rushed towards the cemetery. My dad and his office colleagues immediately admitted my brother to the hospital. The doctor checked him and said he had to stay a few days under the doctor's observation. I was staying in the room, and when my brother regained consciousness, I asked what happened to him. His answer chilled me in broad daylight. He said because the last night was so hot, though our dad warned us not to open the window, he opened the window. In the moonlight, suddenly he saw Herman standing. He was so surprised that he even forgot to wake me. He went to see Herman why he is standing in our garden if he needs something. But when he reached the garden, he couldn't find Herman. Suddenly he felt something heavy thrust upon him, and while he was losing his consciousness, he smelled a strong odor like some kind of animal. He only knew this. I couldn't concentrate on my studies because of my brother's health. I have to admit that I was very lucky. I got very good neighbors. There was a boy my age, and we started walking towards the cornfield and talking about my brother. Then I noticed Herman was sitting on an old broken stone. When we neared him, I chilled to see his teeth. So big. He looked like he was in a trance condition. He suddenly awoke from sleep. I feel so sorry for your brother's incident. He knew that too. But his facial gestures looked different from his statement. The next day, when we went to the hospital, my brother seemed more in bad condition. I was shocked to hear when the doctor told Dad my brother's symptoms looked like hypovolemia and loss of bodily fluid or blood, but though the doctor checked him, couldn't find the cause of this. He was sleeping because of medicine. Suddenly I saw two new very little spots on his neck like earlier. Herman's two big teeth image was floating in my mind. I asked the doctor about these spots. He was unaware of this too. He said maybe this was for some insect bites. He immediately ordered the attendant nurse not to open the window at night if any insects came through the window. With a heavy heart, we came back from the hospital. Dad went to his office. This time I was missing our mom very much. We lost our mom at a very young age when she died. My brother was 6 and I was 8. Tears came from my eyes. If she could be alive, maybe we shouldn't have to face a situation like this. At around 3 a.m. suddenly I woke up. I couldn't understand why this happened. At first, I thought my brother was doing some prank again, but I remembered he was in the hospital. Immediately I noticed the window I closed before sleeping was partly open, and through the window, the moon's light was entering the room, and through the light, what I saw froze me in fear. A very big bat was flapping around my bed. I was in such a shocking state of mind that I couldn't understand what to do next. Suddenly, that bat started flying towards me, targeting my face within a second. I hit the bat's head with my full power with an iron rod that I bought for jungle tracking in the evening. That bat flew through the window. I saw some blood drop on the room's floor. The next morning, I told Dad about the bat. He was surprised too. We went to the hospital and there was very good news waiting for us. My brother was in good condition from the early stage. He was sitting on the bed and we were in a happy mood. I told him too about yesterday's night incident. The doctor informed Dad that my brother would be released tomorrow. He must stay for today in observation. While my dad and I were walking towards our house, my neighbor's friend came to us and informed me that Tom Herman had died last night. Locals found his dead body in the morning near the edge of the river. His head was broken and he had a bad habit of walking at night. Maybe because of the darkness, he fell down the mountain on his way home. The next day, my brother came home. Our dad decided to leave the island, leaving behind the pet cemetery and its dark secrets. As our boat pulled away from the shore, I glanced back at Heligoland, wondering if the spirits that had once roamed the pet cemetery were truly at peace or if they lingered, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to cross their path. The island, with its abandoned graveyard, faded into the distance, but the memories of the chilling horror that had unfolded there would forever haunt my dreams. Heligoland, once a picturesque haven, was now etched in my mind as a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred, and where the past clung to the present with spectral fingers refusing to let go.